Hello and welcome to this special show on Rajya Sabha Television. I am Vishal Dahiya and here we bring you all the details of India's fight against COVID-19, be it the intervention in terms of the technology to try and find the solutions or tackle the challenges which are being thrown at us by this particular pandemic. Now, today we are going to talk about a very important aspect of this particular pandemic. That is the genome sequence that is specific to Indian samples, clade A3I. And for more on this, we're joined by three distinguished guests. Let me first introduce them to you, beginning with Dr. Rakesh Mishra. He is the director of Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology, that is CCMB. We also have with us Dr. Rajiv Dasgupta. He is the professor of the Center for Social Medicine and Community Health Social Sciences, Jawaharlal Nehru University. And we're also joined by Dr. Sarman Singh, the director of AIIMS Bhopal. Welcome all of you gentlemen to Rajya Sabha TV. Let me first begin with you, Dr. Mishra, since your institute has conducted this particular study on clade A3I. Let's start by explaining this to our viewers. What exactly is clade A3I and what do we understand when we say that this is a dominant COVID genome in Indian samples?
So, lots of people have infection of COVID-19, but as we know, this virus mutates as it goes on, and eventually the mutations start to accumulate and they propagate themselves, and they are therefore genomically or genetically distinct after a while. So there are a variety of reasons why so many people are interested in the genomes. Now, maybe 30, 40,000 genomes have been sequenced and deposited, and people are continuously doing it for the simple reason that new variants of the virus keeps emerging. What we have been doing in India, sequencing the isolates from patients of various places. So several CSIR labs, many other laboratories in the country are sequencing the genome. And when we were doing this analysis, I think around 300 plus genomes have been deposited from India. And when we did this analysis, we realized that there is a new clade emerging from the Indian samples. Most of them were sequenced by our labs, and some by IGIV, and few were in New Delhi, and few were from other labs. And it turns out the clades are defined based on the sequence similarity. So this clade is unique because this has three founding mutations, or three mutations which are distinct in this clade, and that's why we had to give it a separate name. This, since it is related to existing A3 clade, so we call it A3I. So let's, for example, for India. And so this is the second most dominant clade. The first one more dominant is A2A, which is world over most prevalent. And this one is more second dominant in India, but is also in Far East Asian countries. This is found not seen in Americas or Europe and so on. So these clades, there are some 8-10 clades, and this is one of the new one from them, which we identified in CCMB.
Okay. What are the distinct characteristics? Because you spoke about one more dominant clade which is there in other countries. So how do we differentiate? What's so specific about this particular clade?
This is the specific mutation that they carry. So, for example, this we call as non-synonymous mutations. That means this mutation will not be present in other clades. And any isolate which has these three mutations which define this clade will be then put in the A3I. So that is what the simple genome sequence which will carry this mutation will define this clade.
Okay. So that's the specificity out there as far as this particular clade is concerned. Let me bring in Dr. Dasgupta. Dr. Dasgupta, your views on this discovery?
Well, what's important at this point is to be able to undertake molecular epidemiologic understanding as the epidemic progresses across the country. From its initial batch of Wuhan returnees, which was the very first phase, to the next batch of international travelers, which was the stream in March, and then its subsequent spread in major cities such as, let's say, Delhi, Mumbai, Indore, Bhopal, and so on. And finally, largely with the traveling migrant streams, as we have witnessed some of the images. It's now going to spread literally far and wide across the country. And it is these inputs that will help us in tracking the epidemiology, the molecular epidemiology. This has also been very effectively used. We have an experience of this with the polio eradication program. Earlier, we would rely on more crude, understanding of who is going where and so on, but that got its own limitations and gaps. And it's really these inputs that will help us in tracking these with far greater precision. The other thing that matters is, of course, what these show is the minor changes that keep happening, and that's expected in a viral disease such as this. The larger, one other larger public health implication is whether the vaccines developed in other countries would actually work in our situation, or the extent to which we need to adapt those to our prevailing strains. These are some of the finer points, but in an epidemic such as this, which is unfolding, and also where the knowledge is changing by the hour, these are extremely important contributions from the Indian scientists. Just to add, yesterday the Indian Journal of Public Health has published its COVID-19 special edition. And in that we have a paper called The Genome Analysis of SARS-CoV-2 Isolates Occurring in India by Professor Chakraborty and others from JNU Molecular Virology Lab.
Okay. Let me bring in Dr. Sarman here on the specific aspect, Dr. Sarman, not only your views on this particular discovery, but also the fact that this kind of genome analysis, how does it help us on the ground to fight pandemics like COVID-19?
Thank you, Vishalji, putting the question, from a medical point of view, because I am a medical doctor. I do little bit molecular biology, but basically I am a doctor. So thank you very much for putting that way. Yes, it is very important, as both the scientists, they said that, the molecular biology is the science which is going to come up and to, answer many of the questions, whether it is a vaccine development or drug development, if at all, or the epidemiology. This is the only way to understand the virus, but very rightly, Dr. Dutta said that this is the virus which belongs to RNA, category. And obviously, in these viruses, this is this phenomena is very common, the mutations. If you see in our laboratory also, our scientists, they analyzed the whole genome sequence of more than 1,300 sequences done globally. And the whole genome, I am saying, not the targeted sequencing. So whole genome we did analyze, and we found that what the CCMB finding and, the CSIR, other institutes, they are saying. On the same line, we also found that definitely Indian strains, which of course by the time this data was analyzed before the all sequences submitted before 1st of May. So after that, we haven't analyzed because it requires a lot of work. So before 1st of May, we found that the strains in India, they have mutations. But interestingly, what we found that the strains in USA, they are having many, mutations. And also what we found, like in HIV, that, say, for example, some, the lineage from Kuwait, lineage from India, lineage from Wuhan, or Europe lineages. But in USA, all lineages were present. Just like, it happened with the HIV in Africa. So all lineages were there. Similarly, so these all mutations, they were present there. And therefore, it also now coming to the medical side, that what does it mean? So what? If there is a mutation, so what? Now, the question is that, we need to associate very strongly that if these mutations are there, it means whether it is more virulent or it is causing more deaths, or it is going to be hurdle in the vaccine development. We found definitely, yes, these mutations they are going to make, and this paper we have recently submitted, Lancet didn't accept, but we have submitted to another journal now. So in that we have said that these mutations they are going to, because I am not being the pessimistic, but it is a fact that the vaccines which are going very fast up to the stages right now we know, and daily we are reading that fast progressing very smoothly. In real life, when these vaccines they come into in the commercial use, then whether these vaccines, as one of the panelists also said, whether these mutations they will hamper the vaccine development or their efficacy. The efficacy, if at all, say for example, if it is developed in India or Wuhan or XYZ, whether that vaccine will have the same effect when there are huge mutations in another clade which is circulating. So these implications, I think they are going to be very, very important also, because this is very premature, I would say. Again, I am saying that the no investigator should take me negatively, but I am also saying that this is too early to conclude anything, because earlier we know that Indore, somebody said that L strain has come and S strain has come, or this or that, and then probably more people are dying because of that strain. It is coming to Indore or Madhya Pradesh, or yes, all these things they corroborate in the epidemiology. If you see, you also see many other things. People they are associating the epidemiology with the HLA. They are associating the BCG vaccination. They are associating with the longitude. Another day I was talking to, and if you see the particular longitude, the Myanmar, Thailand, the Laos and all these, they don't have hardly any case. Not that they are not testing. Cambodia, because I was in the international conference, Cambodia, they did very good number of the testing, but they didn't find only 122 cases. So whether it is latitude or HLA, what kind of things? So many things they are going to come, and it is too early to conclude on any one basis.
Definitely. It is too early to conclude, and there are several aspects to all this particular entire scenario is. But on the mutation part, let me bring in, Dr. Rakesh here. Dr. Rakesh, would you concur with what Dr. Salman is pointing out, that, the mutation specifically, the way the virus is mutating or different strains are mutating, obviously that will have to be kept in mind in the vaccine development aspect as well. And the evolutionary similarities or dissimilarities between the kind of between the clades which are present in the Indian samples.
Yeah, so that's correct. And one of the reasons why these viruses are notorious against vaccines is because they change regularly, and therefore there's no really effective vaccine against any coronavirus. AIDS vaccine we are searching for decades. So those are these issues. But now technologies have changed. We understand the system and how viruses track much more, and technology is improved, and never in the history has been so much of effort put in one disease at a time. So there is a hope that there will be some vaccine, some drug. That will take time though. About the mutation that you mentioned, I just want to put one disclaimer that the analysis of CCMB is put in bioRxiv for experts to see and comment. And this has attracted a tremendous response, tens of thousands of comments and mentions. And so we are yet to get it technically reviewed and accepted in the paper. However, what we are noticing is that in this virus, this is a one-time event that has happened. So we call it as a single outbreak, which looks like it come from Singapore, Brunei, or that part of Southeast Asian, because this is limited, as I was mentioning, to Southeast Asian countries only. It is not in US and America. And these mutations also, we have noticed that this virus is somehow mutating slower than other strains. So the number of strains we see, and other than the prominent founder mutation, what other mutations we are seeing are lesser in number, which means it has somehow become little better virus, so it mutates less. So these are the early findings that we are finding. And then also we notice one of the mutation is in a gene called RDRP, which actually replicates this virus. So maybe it may not be that strong or it may have compromised, but these are the early suggestions that need to be now. What this has opened a way is that now we have one kind of virus among the others. Now we can, if we go back and relate the data from the patient, then we will be able to connect the molecular and the clinical data together and come up with some in-depth analysis of the biology of the virus and its implication. And of course, if we do more in time frames and different geographical context, then we can talk about the spread and so on. So this has opened a whole new avenue to investigate these issues.
Okay, and where are we in terms of understanding this particular virus, novel coronavirus, responsible for COVID-19? Because the earlier plan was to go ahead and sequence at least 1,000 genomes to understand it much better. So in that entire process, Dr. Mishra, where would you say how far have we reached? So
we have made a good progress. That we are now, I'm talking about the country, so about 300 odd sequences have been deposited already, 360 or maybe now they must be reaching 400. And we have in our labs another couple of hundred which we will be refining and then putting in the database. So that means we are reaching 500, 600 number. 1,000 is maybe another 2 weeks. As we sequence more, and what we need to do is to sequence and relate it to the severity of the disease, asymptomatic versus in the ICU patients and different geographical locations. So that will give us a better picture of how the virus is spreading, if there are weaker, stronger viruses and so on. So we are now getting there, but we need more data and more importantly, more clinical data, because what we have earlier sequenced is in desperate times when you just want to sequence whatever comes, whatever you've got. Now we are more choosy. We are looking for samples from different locations with where we have patient data and so on. So I think since the base is made, we know how many clades and so on in the country. So if we can now keep adding more valuable isolate sequences, valuable means they have the metadata from the patient, we'll be able to make more fine revelations of this virus.
Okay. Dr. Dasgupta, your views on all these aspects, specifically the evolutionary similarities or dissimilarities in these genomes, which we are so far we have studied or we intend to, and how this will help us, going further onwards.
Well, as Dr. Mishra explained, these are the finer aspects of the virological research, and therefore with some implications for vaccine development and so on. As far as the control of the epidemic in the short run, which is really our concern now, as far as this short run is concerned, this is not going to really change things very much, in the sense that the measures which will determine control in the short run are largely public health measures, which are to be really put in at very large scales, as we now see. However, as I was elaborating earlier, this will help us in the tracking of the progression of the epidemic, and that will help. As I said, we have seen with polio, with other diseases, because different states and different areas will continue to have varying incidence of diseases. And the overall approach has been to contain area by area. And therefore, this will actually help us in the granularity of the investigation or understanding of the epidemic. But in the short run, the management of this very large epidemic, which is already 2 lakh cases now, and is going to at least rise or at least maintain at this level for some time before we foresee a decline. This is not immediately going to contribute, but as the other panelists have said, there's a lot more to work with the clinical data. We can actually, we'll have to share the clinical data far more widely. Actually, the clinical data is not available so widely. So it's a combination of clinical, epidemiological, and virological data sharing and collaboration that's going to be very crucial in the months ahead.
Okay. Okay. Dr. Saman Singh, do you agree with this aspect out there that, a sharing of more clinical data would be the way forward? Although there are many factors here, as you pointed out earlier, but these kind of discoveries do help us in understanding the progression of the epidemic or of the virus. And the more we understand about the virus, the more we'll be able to go ahead and prepare ourselves or equip ourselves better to fight it.
I can't agree more than that, because what, Dr. Dasgupta very rightly said, that, the clinical data, but, probably this is the time that more collaboration is required. And, these mutations or the clades and epidemiology will be more fruitful if we can track the infections and contacts, because tracking has to be, molecular epidemiology has to be tracking and tracing of the patients. And if we really find that the tracking of about 100 or so, it is possible. So I think CCMB and the Dr. DG CSIR these days, he is very much keen to develop collaboration. The medical institutes unprecedented, because CSIR and ICMR usually used to work in isolation both, but this time probably COVID has brought both the institutes together. And CSIR this time is going more, in a holistic way. So definitely this information will be very useful, if it can be put into context. And context, when I say, obviously the family trees and the clusters, until otherwise we do the clustering, because sometimes, bioinformatics, genetics, these are, sometimes they have their own limitations. So until otherwise, be clinically, be associate whether, yes, this is the cluster which was doing this, and then it is whether more virulent, more fatal, and say for in one cluster, one particular, clade is there and all patients died, or all, cleared the infection, or how they, so that I fully agree with Dr. Dasgupta. This information is very, very crucial, because in isolation, doing the clade or the genomics or, probably good science, basic science, good knowledge, good work, appreciable. But as a doctor or as a epidemiologist, if you say, or for Government of India, or for any, programmers or programmed, managers, has to be put into context with the clinical science and the genomic science. Then only it will be really something of greatest value.
Okay. Concluding comments from you, Dr. Mishra, before we bring the show to an end.
Yeah, I think both the panelists, Dr. Dasgupta and Dr. Singh, have very rightly pointed out that we have to bring in the molecular data, genomics, epidemiology, most important, because we are talking about spread of a disease, and the clinical data from the hospital. If we put these things together, we have large country, we have variety, we have a lot of strength in various areas. And when we put these things together, we can make use of this epidemiology which we are suffering currently and learn for the future in many ways, understanding the disease, how to handle the pandemics of this kind, and as we all discussed, how to come up with the wonderful science and solution to the problems when we put our forces together. This is happening this time, and I think we will make impact on this.
Okay, thank you so much there, Dr. Mishra, Dr. Singh, and Dr. Dasgupta, on sharing your views with us. So this is the all-in-all details of clade A3I, the dominant genome in Indian samples as far as coronavirus or COVID-19 is concerned. And this sort of information does give us a lot more effort to go ahead and understand this particular virus in a much better way, to understand the progression of the virus, and coupled with other data, it will also give us solutions to the other questions which we are facing right now. Wonderful work being done by our scientists and researchers during this entire crisis. We'll come back again tomorrow with a different topic. Till then, you keep watching Rajya Sabha television, and don't forget to adhere to all safety norms, specifically wearing a face mask and adhering to social distancing norms. Thank you.